Hello there, incredible ladies, and I would like to officially welcome everybody to this Thrivherclass. I'm Julia, the creator of Thrivers, and this is really exciting because this is our workshop in work where every month we check in with our career path to make sure that we are still growing and achieving everything that we want to lead a fulfilling career. Before I introduce our incredible partner we have with us today, I've just seen that we do have a few new people here. So welcome to Thrivers. It's so great to have you on board. And more importantly, to see women investing in themselves and their personal development. It's so important. Also, hi to our members. I can see who you are, and it truly lights me up to see our tribe growing and to see you here in the live session. You might be watching this later, and if you are, maybe you're sitting back, relaxing with a glass of wine. Maybe you're doing that now. But yeah, come and join us for the live sessions, because this is where you get to ask your questions directly to the experts and get as much out of the session as possible. If you aren't familiar with Thrivers, on the website we have inspiring interviews to really inject that inspiration with incredible women. And as you're experiencing now, we have these Thriver classes where we partner with knowledge experts in wellness, wealth and work to deliver these monthly classes to provide you with as much practical advice and tools to thrive by. So I just got to do some admin here. So we are going to be doing an exercise today, and I'm just going to put the link here so you can get organized while we do a few other things. So I'm going to give you a link, and this is going to give you access to a worksheet that we're going to be using more towards the end of the session. So that'll give you, you can just download that sometime during the session early on. We're also going to be showing it on our screen. So if you can't download it, don't worry at all. And I'd like just to check, so can people use Zoom? If you're not familiar with this amazing platform, then let's just check. So we've got our chat on the right hand side. If you chat in there, that means that everyone can see what you write. We're super friendly here. Yeah, maybe tell us where you're calling from. Tell us how your day was. I had a really great morning with lots of exciting conversations. I love what I do, so I often talk to incredible women, which is amazing. Yeah, how was your day? So we also have the Q&A icon at the bottom. Now, if you look at this, you can tap on it and a little box pops up. This is where you can ask your questions directly to our expert and myself. And also you can ask anonymously. We try not to say anyone's names anyway, because we want to make sure you feel as included and like this is a safe environment. There's no judgment. We would just love to have your questions, so don't hold back. So yeah, where do we have people calling in from today? I can see someone's from Butley in the UK. Hi there, it's a regular. Very good to see you again. And we have some people from Sydney. Hi, that's where we are today. Someone from Melbourne. Hi there. And I think so someone from New Zealand. Amazing. Okay, so I know a few of you can at least use the chat, so we're going to be expecting some questions, I'm sure, later. So today we are really honoured to have with us Alison Pate. She's an executive and leadership development coach who also consults with the About My Brain. Alison, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Julia. It's a delight to be part of the Thrivers community and to partner with you today and to share some of this knowledge, which I personally am very passionate about.
Yeah, I absolutely love what you do. And yeah, Alison, can you just tell us a little bit more about the work you do and what you do for the About My Brain?
Sure, absolutely. So my background has been, I've been a leader for over 20 years in global leadership, and my passion has been leading people and predominantly creating leaders. So helping people develop their potential and reach their potential and understand what makes them tick, why they act the way they do, how they can show up as the best version of themselves. And I met Sylvia because I was curious, intensely curious about what was happening in the world of neuroscience and how it was affecting leadership. And so I explored her model and decided it basically was a method and methodology that encapsulated everything that I believed in, and everything I had thought was probably some of the best leadership practices throughout my career. So I now consult. We run leadership programs. Sylvia has been teaching leadership for over 20 years and emotional intelligence for 9. She's created an amazing model that is called the I4 Neuroleader Model. And it's a personal leadership and well-being model with the brain at its core. And it's something that in this era, because we're in such a different era at the minute, we're in what we call an ideas economy. And this means that the positive thing about this is that we're no longer in a place where knowledge is power, but right now it's ideas are power. And personal leadership has become key because anybody with the advancement in technology right now has the potential to create followership. And we've seen this by anyone who has a great idea can implement it. They can create a followership. We've seen the myriad of startups around the world attest to this. I was just talking to my friend the other day, and her son is 15 years old, and he has more than 5,000 followers on his Instagram because he's a professional surfer. So we're in a time where the use of technology, social media, has had us able to create whatever we want. If we can imagine it, we can create it. So therefore, personal leadership has become key. When we talk about this era we're in, we can't be analog leaders in a digital world. And I love this phrase that one of the experts at About My Brain coined, because it really is true. What got us to where we are now in our career is not going to take us any further. And part of that is because the change is happening so quickly, and there's a military term called a VUCA world that we're in at the minute. And I'm just curious if anyone's heard of that. Maybe you can quickly just send a yes or a no in the chat box if you've heard of the term VUCA world. I'd just be curious to know.
Yeah, I personally haven't heard of it. I can see we've got a couple of yeses, a couple of nos. So yeah, we'd love to hear more about what that is.
Okay, so VUCA was a military term, and in fact, it's probably almost, as people are just learning it, it's probably on its way out because it'll be replaced by something else soon because everything's happening so quickly. But it responded to, the V stood for volatile, and because of the dynamics and the speed of change right now means that conditions are very volatile. We don't really know what's happening from one minute to the next. The U is the uncertainty, and really this rapid change is creating a time of unpredictability that people are finding it a little bit hard to manage sometimes. From the C is the complexity. So we talk about the complexity that comes with that rapid change, and the changes in technology, the changes even in neuroscience and what we know about how we function. And the A is for the ambiguity. You know, we're no longer in a time where simple linear cause and effect works any longer. We can't necessarily rely on that as a theory. So that's where we're at. So with this model that Sylvia has created, she's identified the key competencies for what we call this VUCA world. And those key competencies, the 4 key competencies are performance. And when we talk about performance, we're talking about not just your work performance every day and your KPIs and your scorecards, but we're talking about the definition we use is the optimal level, both mental and physical, that a person's able to achieve when implementing a task. So how well does your brain and body integrate? And how do we make sure that we stay healthy from the brain and body connection, that integration, to ensure that we can perform at our best? We're a biological system, this brain and body, and often we think of I know in the past, the way we talk about some employees, it's as if we're talking about them from the head up. How do they think? What do they, but we don't think about how they feel. So starting to look at this whole integration of the brain and body is making sure that we start to look at the system from a different perspective and how our biological system affects our work performance. And some of the strategies that we look for improving our performance become very different. So a few ideas on how you can increase this integration between your brain and body is meditation, and you're going to hear that a little bit in this talk, yoga, breathing, brain training exercises, things like movement, exercise, juggling, dancing, things that integrate both the movement and the aspect of our brain. One of the other competencies that's really key and probably key, and a lot of you would have heard of it, and a lot of workplaces that I work in the minute are doing a lot of talk about this, and it's collaboration. And due to the technological advances, collaboration has probably become one of the most highly valued competencies of the modern workplace, because we now have virtual teams, we have a global economy, we have flexible working. So people are spread around where there's very little time difference. Even on this, in this community, we've got lots of different people dialing in from different parts of the world. So this emergence of virtual teams requires people to work more fluidly across boundaries and to understand diversity of thinking, to be able to understand people and have more awareness of how people think and cultural awareness, so that we can use all of these skills to help us collaborate effectively to achieve a common goal. There's a number of, under each of these pillar or competencies, we have a number of pillars. And in communication, in collaboration, we look at communication, we look at inspiration, we also look at generosity and courage. And this model looks at some of the competencies that certainly I've never heard explained or spoken about in the corporate world. You know, generosity, when we think about that, how generous are we at sharing knowledge with people? How generous are we at helping people and taking time to help others learn? Being altruistic, not just giving money, but giving our time. So this model and the tool that assesses looks at competencies that haven't necessarily been considered in a lot of corporate environments before. Innovation is one of the third competencies in this time where it is an ideas economy. People are coming up with new ideas and new ways of doing things all the time. So creativity and innovation become critical because things are changing so fast. And if it takes you 6 to 8 months, 10 months to get an idea to market, potentially somebody's already got there before you, and things are happening so quickly. So the generation of ideas, the ability to bring the best ones to life, and the wisdom to enthuse others to support them becomes key to how you foster innovation in an organization and culture. And when we look at innovation, some of the competencies and pillars beneath that, we look at things like imagination, we look at drive, we look at curiosity, because if we don't have people who are really curious in this time, we miss the opportunity to access our creativity, to access these ideas that might be coming up, to understand who in the organization has these ideas. The fourth competency is agility. How aware are we of the changes in the environment, and how quickly are we able to adapt to them? Now, can we move as quick as we need to in the space we have in these organizations, or are we getting held back by old mindsets, old beliefs, old values, old working practices? So in this time, we need to be able to pivot quickly. And recent discoveries have shown that our brains now can access, agility. We can create ways to make us more agile by doing some practices that will help us not stay stuck. And one of the things that's fascinating to me is that our brain changes, 70% of our brain changes every day. So this new finding that we have means that we don't have to be stuck in the ways we are. We can change. and we can change our leadership. And why I do this work is because I'm passionate about this. And one of the things that Sylvia has done is create a leadership documentary called Make Me a Leader. And she, in her desire to create better leadership, global leadership, she's researched many experts in the field of leadership, neuroscience, performing artists who are top leaders in the performance environment, whether they're musicians, whether they're athletes, to see what makes them tick. And one of the things that came up when she looked at this is, are leaders born or are they made? And, the truth is both. But what I love about this work and why I do this work is because most of the people that I've seen and coached and guided, and even myself, when I was growing up, I never thought, not for a minute, did I imagine that I would become a leader. And, through circumstances, and I share part of my story in the documentary, I thought there's no way I could overcome what happened and some fear I had. And my part of the documentary is about leading through fear. And I thought, I don't know if I could ever overcome that. But now knowing what we know is that we can all change. We can change. If 70% of our brain is changing every day, we can change, which is why I do this work I do now and coach people to do, because I know we've got this chance.
Yeah, and Alison, if I can just interrupt there, that's absolutely amazing. I just wanted to share as well that I've been following the About My Brain for years, and I actually saw Alison talk at a Vivid event, a few years ago now, where she was telling her story, which you can see in the movie, and you'll touch on it a bit later. But yeah, it actually really made me think, wow, there are these new empowering leaders out there, and it actually made me think about the leaders I had in place and who were in charge of kind of my career, which I kind of, from there, it really helped me change direction and surround myself with more empowering style people. So yeah, I love everything you're saying. I just wanted to, and also if anyone's got any questions, please feel free to either put them in the Q&A or the chat, and as soon as there's a good moment, then I'll get around to asking them to Alison. Okay, thanks, Alison.
Thank you, Julia. So we now know that we can change, but how do we do it? How do we do it? And it starts with self-awareness. And the self-awareness becomes the key to personal leadership. So if you know yourself, your strengths, your areas where you could improve, your biases, your reactions, your triggers, then you have an opportunity to change them. And self-awareness starts with really tapping into what's going on for us internally. And I'd love right now for all of you just to do this, a little exercise in just tapping into what's going on now. Julia's introduced you, said hello, introduced me, we've started. Something will be going on for you right now. There'll be something happening inside. What I'd like you to do is access what you're feeling right now. Not thinking, but feeling. So in order to do that, what I'd like you to do is take a couple of deep breaths. And the way to access a deeper sense of what's going on for our body is to take what we call, it's called actually vagal breathing because it strengthens the vagal nerve in our body. But what I'd like you to do is breathe in for 4 counts through your nose, and then breathe out through your mouth for 8 counts. Now, if you can't do 4 counts, if you're a bit of a shallow breather, do 2 or 3. The key is do a double exhalation. Whatever you inhale through your nose, you exhale double through your mouth. So I'd love you all to do that and tap into what you're feeling as you're doing that. And if it's easier to close your eyes, do that. Now, when you've taken a few breaths, what I'd like you to do is identify an emotion that you're feeling, or in a word. It's just one word, or a feeling. It could be an emotion, it could be a feeling, but just identify what it is that you're feeling in your body right now in one word. And if you can, avoid fine or okay.
So curiosity, that's a good one.
Wonderful. That's a fabulous one to have.
Open.
Beautiful.
Got another one in the Q&A. Someone said focused. Calm.
Great.
Empowered. Vulnerable. Relaxed. Excited. That's some great.
So fantastic. What I'm going to encourage you to do is do this as often as you can throughout your day if you want to increase your self-awareness, because understanding what's going on for us physiologically is the key to improving our own awareness of ourselves and what's going on for us. So it can be as simple as you start to feel something and you might start to feel anxious, and for some people it'll show up, maybe they'll start to breathe shallowly, or they'll hold their breath, or they might raise their shoulders and tense up. So when you start to notice these, start to do your breathing and then just check in with what's going on for your body and ask your body what's happening. Because our body never lies. Our head makes up lots of stories and our mind makes up lots of stories, but our body doesn't lie. So we will be able to access that. So self-awareness is, yes, sir.
Just a question on that. Just got a couple of questions before we move on, because I know we've got lots to cover. Someone just said, I'm curious about finding that 70% of the brain that can change each day. So what part of the brain is this, and is there some resource we can find out more about this?
Yeah, the person, Dr. Fred Travis, on the documentary, if you watch the documentary, and there's going to be a link to that, Dr. Fred Travis, who is the professor at Maharishi University, has done extensive research on transcendental meditation, and he's also interviewed in the documentary, and you can also watch the extended chapters from that documentary. And he's an amazing man who's got a lot of wisdom. He has written a book too, and I just cannot recall the book, but I can get that and pass that on to you, Julia, and you can share that with the community.
Yeah, when we do our follow-up email, we can put some resources in there.
Exactly.
We've also
go ahead.
Just got to get through the quick questions. Can you tell us the difference between what your body is telling you compared to what your mind is telling you when you breathe?
Well, it depends. It's different for everybody. And as you practice this more, you'll start to understand the mind generally, and it's different for people, but the mind is definitely chatter and can be talking a lot, whereas the body is generally the feelings and sensation.
Okay, so it's good to find the words which I guess maybe you connect to.
Connect to.
That you can feel more. And also, when you're saying about doing this regularly and checking in, can you use it as a kind of diary? Say if you were being very stressed out at work and you made sure every day you checked in how you're feeling through the breath. Is that a good way of kind of looking at?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And a lot of the clients that I work with, as they're learning and wanting to develop their self-awareness, I encourage them to keep a journal and to actually, especially if they're wanting to change behaviors, to start identifying the behavior that they want to change or what's going on for them, and to keep an awareness of what's happening. So to document what happens in the moment, where they feel it, what's going on, was there a trigger to it? So people can start to understand their triggers or their reactions to things, so that the key is that all of us will have triggers. We all have reactions. We'll all have something that will cause us some unrest. We have the part of the brain that's the amygdala, which is the part that's responsible for fight, flight, and sometimes freeze. And when we are under threat, and threat can be stress, or it can be a physical threat, or it can be an emotional threat that we interpret as, we will react to that. So knowing what might be your trigger through this self-awareness. So if something happens and you find yourself reacting to it, see if you can go back and track back what happened, where did you feel it, and what is the emotion, or what is the link to that. Is that clear? I'm not sure if I explained that very well. So
yeah, I think that's great. And yeah, any more questions about that, please feel free to throw them in.
Great. Okay. Because I think the key is that awareness gives us, we can't change behavior, whether it's leadership behavior or something, a habit we want to change, until we're aware of it. And then once we're aware of it, we need to put something in place to replace that. And the more aware we are, the more we can change a different behavior. So I guess I'll give you an example. If somebody is very angry and aggressive, there's a personal example, that will make me quite tense. So if I hear somebody really shouting or very angry, it could be on the street, it could be somebody yelling at something totally unrelated, but my reaction will be to tense up. So I know that that's a trigger for me, this, angry shouting. So it'll be, okay, what's that? I'll notice my reaction, and then I will loosen my shoulders, bring them down, start my breathing, and just notice, and then presence myself and look around, make sure, I know where I am, I know I'm safe, notice my surroundings and say, okay. And then, but just notice that the awareness was there. Okay. Brilliant. Any other questions on that?
I think that's it.
So keep the awareness journal, start to notice when you're getting triggered about things and what they are, and start to notice the patterns. You'll start to notice that, it could be certain people. You might also start to notice what your biases are. What are the types of things that particularly irritate you? People who come across as know-it-alls, or, it could be a thousand things, but it's just noticing what they are. All right. So I think we'll move on to the 7 leadership strategies, if we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that good? Okay. So the key to being an effective leader is how well can you integrate your mind, your body, and how can you perform as a result? So we know now that it's not just about the head. We are a full body, and it's about how do we holistically manage ourselves. So the number one strategy to increase self-awareness, to increase our functioning and increase our integration is meditation, without a doubt. Just a quick answer in the box: how many people meditate regularly or are attempting to meditate regularly?
I personally have gone through stages of meditation. When I was being really strict, I would get up every morning and do 10 minutes. And I actually used a couple of the apps. So Headspace was really great. And One Giant Mind is another app, which was good. And yeah, then I got out of that really good routine and I'm back to not. But we've got daily, I want to, but don't yet. So yes, a couple of people. Is anyone, open to trying it? Currently attempting was daily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So if I can only leave you with one thing today that you take away, it would be, I would love you all to start doing some form of meditation. And I want you to not make it too onerous. I started meditating 20 years ago, and it's taken me a long time to do it. And there's days, I go days without doing it, and then I go days of doing it intensely. But what I've found is that even on the days that I don't want to do it, if I do something like 3 minutes, it's beneficial. Meditation is the most effective way to reduce negative moods, anxiety and depression, and improve our mental functioning. And that's been proven scientifically. It's the fastest way to build self-awareness and insight into ourselves, because when you're in meditation, you are feeling things. You are feeling your body. You know, you're focusing, you're noticing your thoughts. It's not about getting your thoughts out of your head. It's about noticing them and letting them float by and not running off with them. Leaders who practice transcendental meditation, TM, as you may know it, and I've said that's the one that's been most regularly and highly researched of all the meditations. It's been proven they have higher levels of brain and physical functioning. It allows us to get into a space where we can calm ourselves and manage, and it allows us to access our prefrontal cortex, sharpen that up. It allows us to access our creativity. It allows us to access that part. You know, the creativity leads to the innovation. Julie has mentioned a few apps. There's another one called Calm, which some people use. There's different forms of yoga that include meditation. If you really are struggling with it, I'd encourage you just to try 3 minutes and maybe find something that works for you. It might not be doing, it might just be looking at the water, going down by the beach and staring at the water for 2-3 minutes. If you
Alison,
can't,
sorry,
yes.
Just trying to find a good time to get the question in. So between mindfulness and meditation, can you do enough mindfulness to not have to do the meditation, or is it really important to do both, or what would you recommend?
Well, I think they're tied together. You know, they are tied together. Being mindful will also help the brain, and mindfulness is a state of being. So it's tied together. You know, you can be, I think we should be, well, we should, there's a belief. I think it would be good for people to actually look at how they can be mindful in everything they do. You know, whether it's getting dressed in the morning, whether it's eating your breakfast, whether it's noticing things around you, noticing people. So mindfulness is something that I think people can embody in everything that they do, which will help them. Meditation is the specific practice. So you could go down to the beach and do a mindful walk along the beach, and that could be meditative.
We've got our meditation guru here. Someone says that they call it their retreat time, and they do it 2 times 20 minutes every day, at least once or twice. And there's they've also put Insight Timer is a great app, thousands of various meditations. Oh, that's really good. So yeah, it's definitely a place to start.
Insight app is quite a popular one, very much.
Okay.
I personally practice Kundalini yoga, which they call the yoga of self-awareness, and that includes meditation, chanting, and postures. So for me, to get into a meditative state, the chanting helps me most. So I think it's about practicing what works best. Try an app if it doesn't work. Try some mindfulness practices and see how they work for you. Try chanting.
How long do you think you need to give meditation before you actually start noticing results?
Well, studies have shown that even just doing it a few minutes a day will notice the results, because it's resting our brain. It's taking time to actually rest our brain. And I often liken it to a car. You know, if we had a fabulous car, we wouldn't leave it running 24/7. So taking time out to meditate and practice mindfulness is like slowing and stopping your car and turning the engine off, as it were.
Well, we're getting some really great recommendations for the apps. So yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. But I'll definitely put this in the resource as well, so lots of more people have access. It's really good.
Brilliant. Okay. So the second strategy I want to talk about is really technology and brain health. And you know, there's a lot of technology out now that helps. And we just talked about the apps, which are great. There's wearables. A lot of people are wearing Fitbits to track, you know, their health and fitness and their sleep and their heart rate variability and all of that. So there's a lot of things. And really, when you watch the film, there are some of the predictions are that, brain health is going to be a critical part of our health profile in the future. Now, when I think about corporations, some corporations with their executives do full physical health checks. It may be that we're scanning brains at some point, because we now know, with what we know now, that we can identify illness a lot quicker with what we know. So we might be looking at that. The third strategy is sleep. Now, improving sleep for cognitive function and a healthier, more productive life. Now, I am guilty of, when I was in the corporate world, and I'm the first to admit, I suffered horrific burnout. And part of my story is shared why I did that. It was overcompensating, trying to overcome fear. And I slept for many years for 4 or 5 hours a night. And again, the research, and they've done studies with control groups where they've shown people who only get 5 hours sleep performed to the same ability as people who were sleep deprived for 3 days. So, or 36 hours, not 3 days. So, we think that we train ourselves to believe we're functioning, but we're not. We're not as well as we could be. So 7 to 9 hours is ideal. That amount of sleep will allow us to have a better health system. Our bodies and brains go through a cleaning and restorative process when we sleep. So if we don't get those hours, we're actually not cleaning our brain and body. So the functions aren't happening, which means that we're dealing with a compromised body and brain. And that's often why we feel groggy on waking, because the processes, haven't gone through their cleansing. So really, really important. A lot of us know some of these techniques. It's about having good sleep hygiene, making sure you don't have technology in your bedroom, TVs and iPads, phones, whatever it is, get them out. Make sure that you're eating, you're having hours before you go to sleep, so you're not going to bed on a full stomach. I personally don't watch a lot of TV at all, but I certainly don't watch anything that's in any way stimulating, or certainly crime shows or anything that's unpleasant, like what I call unpleasant, crime shows or anything that may be upsetting, as it were. So a lot of people swear by having a shower before they go to sleep. It's just as setting the body, almost training the body that now here's my shower. I'm now winding down an hour or two before we go to bed. And, there's essential oils, there's herbal teas, there's lots of nighttime teas. Puka does a great nighty-night tea, it's called, which is fabulous. So,
and
any questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to add in on the importance of setting boundaries, because I know that was my biggest fallback when I was working in corporate, is that if, a manager or boss texted me at all hours, I would always feel like I had to be on. And okay, I should have turned my phone on airplane mode, but I also wanted to be that attentive employee, but that just didn't help me progress. I was just, eventually leading towards that burnout state too. So setting those boundaries and emails, and we're living in a more global world where we can't, even if you do have overseas emails and things to attend to, just have, if you want to be your best, remember you're going to achieve so much more the next day with that great sleep.
It also sets a really bad example. If we're wanting to lead by example, there's often, if you're leading people and that's the behavior that you're demonstrating, some people will feel obligated to follow that. So you're contributing to not great practices for them as well. Or they'll feel, intimidated. They'll feel like they need to perform in that manner, or they will, and certainly when I was close to burnout, I had some of my team, my managers, say, we don't want to progress any further as leaders because we see what you look like. You're exhausted all the time. So be really mindful of what we're creating in the behaviors that we. So good point. Thanks, Julie, on the boundaries. The fourth is the mind-gut connection, and I'm sure people have heard now how critical the gut is. We now know that the gut influences the whole brain and the rest of the body. And in fact, that there's over 100 million neurons in the gut sending messages to the brain, where we used to think it was the other way around. So healthy brain is infinitely linked to the healthy gut. So, and it's also, we now are seeing that it also controls the immune system. So a lot of diseases are starting from inflammation in the gut. So, you know, that old saying, your body is a temple, that we heard for decades, and probably, and you are what you eat, all of these funny little sayings and cliches, they are incredibly true. So it's just being mindful of what's happening. And I'm personally am horrified by the level of illness and allergies that are coming out now because of the way people are eating. So be mindful. It is called the second brain. It is about, if you want to access your intuition, which is one of the competencies that we measure in these tools, and we place a lot of emphasis on it, you gotta clean your gut from time to time. You know, so some fasting from time to time, intermittent fasting, buying the best quality food you can. If you do nothing else, do that. All right. So the fifth is keep it moving. You know, keep your body moving. We all know about how important exercise is. Yet we're in a world now with all this technology that, and we're becoming more reliant on that. We don't do much. You know, we aren't moving as much as we used to. So physical activity enhances resilience by boosting endorphins and neurotransmitters, dopamine and serotonin, and also they reduce the likelihood of depression and risk of depression. It also, the more we move, we suppress the release of the stress hormone, which is cortisol. So again, 20 to 30 minutes, walk in nature. You know, if that's all you do, just take yourself for a walk in nature, do that. Do mindful walking, grounding yourself so that you're staying quite centered. And if you're, I know, you know, lots of people have their gym practices. What I also say to people is do some of the mindful. Some of the people I coach are type A personality, and their exercise is CrossFit constantly. And I think that's great for their fitness levels, but also I encourage do something that slows you down. Again, if you're operating at this high level, sometimes the most benefit you can get is from doing some restorative yoga or yin yoga or some Pilates or going for a walk. So just be mindful of that. The sixth is the power of the heart. Probably my favorite. I feel very heart connected to this work that I do, and I think what I'm loving seeing now is the Brené Brown has done a world of good for people by introducing the power of vulnerability. And if you haven't seen her TED Talk on that, I strongly encourage you to watch it. So be open, practice kindness and compassion. A 40-second hug releases oxytocin, which is the trust hormone. So hug as many people as you can. And yeah, be there. Sorry, I just got distracted by the note. Yes, she has. Yeah, Brené Brown. The last strategy is really adapting our brain in a changing world. We talked about 70% of our brain changes every day. With neuroplasticity, we know we can change things. We know what we can do now. We know what we're capable of. So learning, the lifelong learning can keep happening. We're capable of learning new things at any age now. We talk about this, so what I'd like to do now is jump to the exercise, and hopefully you've all got a copy there, and think about what is the area of your life or what strategy would you like to implement that would help you improve an area of your life.
Okay, I'm just going to re-put that link here. And Alison, is it a good time to share that on screen? So if people
yes, please.
would rather just have a pen and paper and write it, that's absolutely great as well, because I'm going to be sharing what the sheet looks like. So I'll just share my screen and then Alison will take us through it. Okay, can everyone see that? It's the personal leadership plan. This is the activity we're going to do to really hone in on the one strategy to develop or to focus on today. Obviously, there's probably lots, but what's the number one strategy from what Alison's talked about today. So
Yeah,
Alison,
so what would...
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Julia. So think about what you'd gain the most benefit from focusing on. For some of you, it might be you've got to improve your sleep. You may want to, take up meditation, whatever it is, whatever would help you. And then what's the action you will commit to? So what is it? How will you fit this into your day? So being mindful that the way people create habits, and look, I come from a practice that says it creates 40 days to create a habit. You'll hear everything from 21 to 30. I think when they did a research study, it was about average 66 days. We all have, there's many variations on that thought, but then it could be another 90 days to embed it. So what I suggest is that you make the habit something that's really manageable. So if it's meditation, start with 3 to 5 minutes a day and fit it in to where you know you can do it easily. So it might be as soon as you wake up, go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, you do your meditation or whatever it is that you're doing. So then think about what obstacles or excuses might come up for you. And the reason we're doing this is if we can anticipate that, we can go to the next section, which is what action will you take to overcome them? So if you need to, you might say, I don't have time in the morning. The action you might take is set your alarm 15 minutes earlier. And then what support might you need? Now, this is really, really important because in order to help us, it often helps us to, one, write down our goals, because then we sort of put them out there, we set them out there, declare them, but also tell people, because once we declare it, we've actually got, and ask for some support, we've got a little team behind us, so if we ask people, so ask them. And it's whether it's saying, I'm really working on changing my negative language. So whenever I start to be critical about myself, will you catch me with that? Or I want to ask more than tell people in my team how to do things. Will you remind me if I stop getting curious and I'm not asking anymore? So what support? And list the names of who you're going to ask to help you. And then looking forward, what will success look like? How will you know you've got there? Because what's really important is to get this vision for what it will look like. Whether it's you're meditating now 20 minutes a day and you're really enjoying the process of it, or you've empowered somebody at work to take on a new project, whatever it is, what will success look like for you? And then we want you to say, what date will you start? How many days will you commit to? And I want you to be really realistic with this. If your action is to get healthier and be more mindful about what you put in your gut, but you've got your birthday coming up and lots of Christmas parties and you know that it's going to be hard for you, you might want to start a little bit later. Set yourselves up for success. That's not to give you an excuse not to do it if you really want to, but set yourself up for success and maybe just say, okay, I'll limit my intake of sugar or alcohol to a limit per day. And then how many days will you commit to? One of the things, there's a book called Tiny Habits, which I loved, and I've gone blank, I think his last name's Chamberlain, who wrote it, where he talks about most people fail in changing behavior because they set their goals too big. And so they basically, he says, if you're going to set a goal of flossing your tooth, floss one tooth. And he talks about meditation, just do it for 1 or 2 minutes. Just make it a tiny habit, because what will happen is if you do it for 2 minutes, you want to build some success so that gives you the impetus to keep going. So it's kind of a really good way to start if you're feeling like you need to just manage it, because the key is setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, that's really brilliant. If anyone feels like they want to share their chosen strategy with us or chosen habit, and then we can kind of help each other be accountable, then yeah, please share them in the chat or the Q&A. And yeah, what kind of things have come up? Was there anything that from what Alison said really inspired you to take on a new strategy or a habit? I know recently I've had to change my diet a bit. I'm trying this whole food diet. I already eat quite healthily, but this is to another level, like cutting all like white sugar out, and having to keep gluten and dairy just about not there at all, which is a big challenge and probably not easy over Christmas, but I really want to do it. And actually hearing you say about how the gut influences our brain so much, it's actually really encouraging to know that when you're eating healthily, that's going to help make decisions easier, feel calmer. I've already noticed, less anxiety because you don't have those peaks that sugar gives you.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've probably given my mistake from what you're saying. I've probably got a few too many, like cutting caffeine as well. But actually, I think as soon as you start feeling the benefits, like not having the peaks and lows, you realize you don't need it because you actually feel clearer. Like my head isn't, don't get those foggy patches. So it's really good. Yeah. So has anyone else got any habits they'd like to start from today? Rigorously plan each day's schedule the evening before. Oh, well done. So you're going to start planning the day before. Yeah, that's really, really good. I always thought that was good. Some people say about it's almost too late when you start in the morning because there's always so much to do. So that's a great one, starting planning in the evening.
That's great.
We've got another one. Just see. Okay, focus is my big one. Someone said, being in startup land, there is always a shiny light, email distraction. I can set up my awareness and change strategies, but struggle to see what success might look like. Oh, how do you measure focus is the question.
How do you measure focus?
Yes.
Tell me more about that question.
Can you elaborate a little more? Is it how you should, so how you should measure? Do you mean measure as in how well you're being focused? I know, okay. So, yeah, it's a tough one. How do you measure focus? So, how long should you apply to a task? I mean, I know we're so good, especially as women, as multitasking. I know I have to like close everything down before I can, and I achieve the most in a specific topic if I just look at that thing instead of multitasking. But sometimes I have a day of multitasking just to get through a lot of little stuff. I'm not sure if I think that very well. But.
So I think the key is, and I'm not sure if this will answer because I suppose it's subjective to everyone. I guess the brain does actually need 2 to 3 hours of focus. That's part of what the brain does. And so if you want to achieve healthy mind-body integration, so with work, I guess I notice if I'm focused by my level of distraction. Does that make sense? So if I find I'm really distracted, then obviously I'm not focused, is the key. So, and because I can be easily distracted, this goes back to the self-awareness. I know that I can be really easily distracted, and I'm a true extrovert in the sense that I get my energy from people and things. So I have to create an environment where I can be focused. And that will mean shutting down phones, and if I'm working on the computer, shutting down all other devices so I'm not distracted, sitting at my desk, picking the time, making sure I've got everything I need, whether it's the water, take care of my biology as well. So it depends. It is really subjective. I know other people, my partner, for example, could focus for hours and he has no problem. And he doesn't get distracted. So he doesn't need to put the same amount of parameters in place as I do. So I guess it's quite subjective. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, we're just being aware. Just before we answer any more questions, I'd like just to add in, so you might have heard Alison say earlier about the About My Brain movie. So we're actually going to give away an access to that movie. If you can email me, julia@thrivers.com, and tell me what area of leadership you would be intrigued to know more about. So maybe it's something that Alison mentioned or touched on today that you thought that's really fascinating, would love to know more. Maybe it's something completely different. I'd really love to know. So yeah, we're gonna pick a winner in about 4 minutes time. So if you can email me and let me know, and then we'll announce the winner. So that's the area of leadership that you think would be intriguing. Because I know that there's so much more to say, isn't there, Alison? And you had to like try and fit it all in today.
Yes, there's a wealth, and it really is. It's amazing film, and it goes into these strategies in much more detail, the 7 strategies that we've gone through. And then there are expanded chapters that you can also access, which with the experts, and there's books. I've got a wonderful workbook here, which is, can you see that? Anyone see that? So it's the leadership is upside down workbook that there's another one, there's the workbook, and you can purchase these. There's an online learning course. So if you're really passionate about learning, the self-assessment tool allows you to assess yourself, then get 360 feedback from family, friends, peers, manager, etc. It's the only diagnostic tool I know that encourages feedback from family and friends, because it has had a millennial focus where they've looked at and said, well, these people know us better than some of our work colleagues, so we want to incorporate that. So it's a full 360 where you can actually get that feedback. So if you're really, really keen to learn more about it, there's an enormous amount of resources, and it's the About My Brain Institute.
Amazing. Okay, so there is actually a Black Friday offer, which I'm going to put in here because it is amazing. If any of these things you'd like to learn how more about becoming a practitioner or get certified in the About My Brain, I've just put a link there because they're doing amazing promotion that runs until this Sunday, and you can get 30% off a lot of their courses. So I've just put the link there so you can check them out. I think it's amazing work they're doing, continually looking through neuroscience to understand how we can be the best leader, what we can do personally, like you heard a little bit today, to make sure that we're making the best decisions, and also know that we're in the correct environment for us to thrive and build on our own personal leadership. It's so exciting. Thank you so much, Alison. Where can people reach out to you if they would like to contact?
The 2 email addresses for About My Brain as well as mine. So I work with About My Brain, as I mentioned, and I also have my own private practice. So those emails there, if you could share them, that would be fabulous.
I'm just going to put those in the chat. And okay, before I check my emails for the winner, so you still have a couple more minutes, I just wanted to let you know we have a next month. So as you know, those have been before, we have monthly workshops in wellness, wealth and work. And because it is Christmas next very soon, scarily, we've got 3 really exciting workshops that are all tailored around the festive season, but most importantly, getting set up for 2019. It's so important to, be ready and be excited about it. And a lot of people have a break over that time, as much as we like to binge eat and drink. Really make time to explore what you want to achieve next year. So we've got some really great partners with amazing people. I'm not going to reveal everything yet because we're going to be publishing them on our website at the end of this week, and I'll keep you updated. So I am just going to go to my emails now. Thank you so much, Alison, for joining us. It's been a really great session today.
Thank you. It's been wonderful and great to be part of your community. It's very inspiring. And also, if anybody wants to reach out and has any questions for me, I'm happy to. They can in the emails. So.
Okay, amazing. All right, well, I just checked. Oh, someone said they're very excited. I wonder if you know who the panelists are, because they're pretty special as well. So yes, we have a winner. So Werner from the UK, you have won the About My Brain movie access. So that's really exciting, and I hope you enjoy it. And thank you for sharing. You actually said that you wanted to learn more about meditation, and so maybe that can be a wellness topic. That would be really, really cool. And maybe Alison has a contact for that I could connect with. Okay, thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you everyone for joining us.
Well done, Berna. Okay.
Yeah, and thank you, Alison, again. It was such an honor to have you here after seeing you speak all those years ago. It's amazing to have you here in a live workshop. Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Julia. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Bye. Good night.
Keep thriving, incredible ladies, and going for your goals. And hopefully we'll see you next time.